is Greg from Freedom, and this webinar is basically to get us familiarized with selling storage for residential systems. And it's taken us a while to get a package together that actually works, and we feel comfortable selling and building a lot of these. So this is the culmination of all the stuff. It's not, we don't have a long outstanding history with doing it. The market is very new, so please excuse me if some of the things I say are pretty vague, and if I'm not the most confident engineer, designer, or contractor with this stuff. So we're all kind of learning together as we do this. So with that caveat, we decided to go with storage as the inverter, and storage will be used with a LG battery. So it's going to be an LG battery. There's different sizes, but I think everyone's going to use the 10 kW battery. And then storage only comes in one size right now. It's a 7600. It's the storage 7600. It looks very similar to the existing SolarEdge, except for it has a lot more guts inside the bottom of it that does all the battery interactions. We'll send you the webinar and all the files for your review later. It's a lot of information, so I don't expect you to understand it all at one time. As you can see, it's a normal SolarEdge inverter, meaning we have the optimizers and everything up in here is the same. All the disconnects, all that's the same. It's just in the lower half of this inverter, there's a bunch of just nifty electronics that make the system very smart. It's designed for single phase, and this is the basics of how it works. So we have our normal solar system, so everyone just sells solar like they normally would. It comes down into the DC, and then in here it converts it to AC, or it charges the batteries over here. In this situation, a lot of the advertising and things with SolarEdge at this time were with this company, but we decided that we wanted to work with LG. It's kind of a longer standing business, better warranties, very similar technologies, but we just decided to go that way. So there's other diagrams I have to kind of explain this, but essentially the solar and the optimizers come down DC, and then it has a transformer that would convert to AC, but then it would go back to DC to charge this battery up. And a lot of that conversion, I believe, is done in here. And then off of this inverter, we set up the backup loads. So the backup loads are fridges, some fans, things like that. I'll dive into a little bit deeper, but it's really basic backup stuff. So we're not selling a full, backup off-grid, run your 2 air conditioners, pool pump, and all that fun stuff. This is just survival backup loads, which is pretty cool in and of itself. So we'll get into that deeper, but the inverter would either go to the loads, or it would backfeed onto the grid just like normal. And there is another metering system that needs to be installed to make this interaction like really smart. I don't know what that stuff means, but that's just basically it looks like just the uses of the equipment. Here's some fun spec sheets. Again, it's a 7600. Almost all the same stuff as the SolarEdge, except for it has, obviously a lot more guts at the bottom, kind of that I explained. This is a single line diagram with switches and all that stuff. Don't worry about it. It's what we use for designing. This is the transformer that's used to kind of help guide the inverter and the batteries. Just more data about that. I mean, if you have people asking about that, you're in big trouble. This is the transformer. This is an important area that we need to explain, is the CT clamps. Basically, CT clamps go over the hots on the main, and you need those to read the basically energy, the kilowatt hours going through those CT clamps. And those are very important for our monitoring system of the battery, of the inverter and the batteries. And I'll explain that later and actually show you a video that will do a better job than I would be able to do. That's the battery. That's the inverter with all the intelligence. And then this is the battery. It's a RESU 10H. 400 volts, and this is pretty interesting. You know, it shows how many kilowatt hours it'll hold, the amount of amps that it can put out, and right now the way it's set up today, which is May 10th, 2017, is only one battery can be installed on the inverter. The inverter is designed to handle up to two. And we're just waiting for LG to release something. I don't know what it is exactly, but somehow you can piggyback two of these together that would double up the amount of kilowatt hours. I think the amps and all that will stay about the same, but it just gives more energy that it can store for more equipment. But again, still it's not going to run the air conditioner or all that stuff, but it can run a fridge and some lights and things like that, and it becomes more of a you know, it's kind of a discussion of what things people would want to have running if the grid shut down either temporarily or permanently. And if it were me, it'd be the fridge, a couple lights, and I think that's about it. Maybe like an outlet. You know, I put an outlet in, maybe I can charge a phone up, plug in a TV, something like that. So just the basics is enough to get by. The battery is actually really sexy. It's a very good looking battery. You'll see in videos and things like that, the mounting is simple. You know, you just find a few studs and slam it up there and basically bolt this thing on and run some wire into it. So it's a pretty simple install. And that's it for their thing. There's a brochure for the batteries. Basically, what I take on this brochure is it's LG, and they're a big company and they're awesome. So, you know, there's a lot of technical stuff, and I don't know what the heck's going on here. There's just a lot of things in here. But at the end of the day, it's like, woohoo, we're LG, we have cars, TVs, batteries, and all that stuff. One thing I did find interesting is they have been in the battery game for a long time, probably longer than anybody. And they're just now getting into the residential battery backup and actually launching things out. So we feel really comfortable that this stuff is going to work. You know, our biggest concern is that we were going to roll these things out and then they were all going to break, and then we were going to be stuck with a ton of service calls and everything to try and fix the problems. So that's why it's taken us this long to actually roll something out to everybody, because now we feel comfortable. These are the system sizes. These are the 48 volts. We would be here in the 400 volts. I don't know why you'd pick a smaller one, because the inverter and all the equipment and all the relays, everything is kind of a hard cost in these systems, and the battery is just one component of that system. So it seems to me you would just pay the extra whatever grand to get the bigger one if you're going in. But I don't know, I'm still learning this as well. The warranty is not the greatest thing. It's 10 years, and then after 10 years, it is warranted to retain at least 60% of the nominal energy. Not horrible, I guess, but not the greatest thing. It's not like solar that just sits there and works forever. This stuff heats up and degrades pretty quick. And then this goes into some other basic stuff. I mean, it is a very simple looking warranty right now. And again, we're just starting to be able to roll these things out into the market, so it's missing a lot of clear data on what's going to happen. Okay, and I wanted to jump. This is a normal single line diagram that we would actually put in our permit sets, and it explains pretty well how this works. So you have a solar array, and then each panel has its optimizer, just like normal, and it's going to come into the inverter. This auto transformer is what does the AC to DC. So I believe it comes through here, goes back to DC, and then goes back into the battery and keeps this stored. Then this AC would come across to these loads. So you have your backup loads set up in here. And then this comes across like normal to backfeed, either feed the loads that are on the main or backfeed the loads depending on how much power is being used. And then this is the meter with enclosure, and this is the brains behind the system, or one of the brains, and this is where those CT clamps get installed. And so essentially, this is the area that gets programmed, well, part of the area that gets programmed to tell the inverter to either charge the battery or tell it to discharge the battery or tell it to go to the backup loads. So again, I don't understand exactly how all this stuff works. I'm not an electrical engineer, but this is where a lot of the communication happens. So make sure when you're selling these, this is the equipment that needs to be on the wall. So it's quite a bit. We have, the existing MSP, this meter, we have a sub panel, we have this transformer, we have the inverter that's bigger, and then we have this battery. And this doesn't even show the disconnect and then some of the other stuff that that we need on the home. So when you're walking the property, make sure you specify the area that we're going to put all this stuff, and it has to be indoors. So people have cabinets, things like that. We need to make sure we have the space. So before it was kind of like, do they have the roof space for solar? Now we have to make sure they have the wall space for all this backup power and battery stuff. All right. Wanted to get into the financing portion of it. Right now, Mosaic offers batteries on a 10-year program. Soon, it's going to be on a 20-year program. And this has, how you add it on there. I believe the customer has to be approved, credit approved, and then the batteries the battery option will come up as part of the equipment. We're only going to have storage and LG in there. Right now, they only finance 3 battery types, and that's mainly because of the financial integrity of the business. So they'll do LG, Mercedes, and then Teslas. So we decided again to go with the LG. We thought that was the better choice. The other option for financing is Hero, Y-Green. Some of the PPA companies are going to start coming out with it soon, but they're waiting till the 2.0, NEM 2.0 come out to roll them out. So obviously Cash works. Trying to think, I don't know about Dividend or any of these credit unions. I'm not sure. I don't think Dividend, just shooting from the hip, but I think some of the other credit unions would be fine. We just have to check that as we learn and as we go along. Kind of bouncing around a little bit, but the idea of these batteries I kind of want to go over the concept of what we're actually selling and how it works. The battery is got two basic benefits. Number one is it can tier shave your electricity backfeeding. So you can program it, or we can program it to be aggressively discharging on the grid, giving the customer premium kilowatt hour credits during that time, which in most cases is 10 to 6 p.m. during peak times. So they actually get an ROI on that. What that return is, I don't know. It depends on the specific location of where they are and what their credit is for it, and then also depends on how much power they're using in the daytime. Obviously, the less power they use and the more they backfeed, then the more kilowatt hour credits they get. So it's a case by case basis. We in the future, as the industry matures, we're going to be able to come up with some more definitive numbers as we start running 15-minute intervals and we start putting it into systems and running sort of like a analysis to see what the actual credit is. Will be more precise, but right now it's just more conceptual. So you can backfeed that time of use, and then the secondary is this backup option. If the grid goes down, or if they somehow shut the power down, on the main, you can still, use your fridge and all that stuff. So just want to make sure that everyone's on the right concept with it. And we are going to be doing a confirmation call with each one of these systems, just verifying the customer understands what the batteries are for and how they're used. Because the last thing we want to do is have 100 of these going out per month, and half the people think that they're going to have battery backups to run their air conditioners and fridges and all those things. So just want to make sure we're selling it properly. Jumping back to Mosaic, the payment roughly, I'm just going to give a real rough number, but it's a little over $100 a month for 10 years right now. We'll give you the actual price of this whole setup, the whole adder. Essentially, we're adding on, some guts, the battery, the sub, this meter enclosure, and then plus the BOS and the installation time. So that is, and the CT clamps. So that's the additional cost for doing this system as opposed to just a normal, grid tie solar system. So all that additional cost, I'll give you in a pricer sheet, kind of like we have for clay roof and all those things. So we'll have a set price for it, and then some fluctuations depending on the specificity of the home. For example, CT clamps. Right now, the CT clamps is a limiting factor on some of these main service panels. So we diagnosed that if the main service panel is a square D, the manufacturer square D, then we can always put a CT clamp. We never have a problem with it. It's just, obviously a little additional work to stick your hands in some live power and clamp it on, but we can always get that done. If it's a GE panel, we sometimes can get it done, and it's dependent on the site and the exact panel type. So not all GE panels can get these CT clamps. If the panel is in Eaton, like EATON, then we never can put CT clamps on. So if you want the CT clamps, and I'll explain later what they actually do, why you want them, but if it's a requirement, we'd actually have to do a main service panel upgrade, an MPU. And then if it's a Zinsco, yes, we can do every time. And then a Siemens, yes, every time. So those are the 5 major panels that we run into. The issue is these clamps are, roughly, if you just take your index finger and put it to your thumb and make that circle, that's what it is. It's a clamp like that. And we have to put them on the load side, and then some of these panels that you can't get into them, or they have hard brackets that are not wire-based for their load center. So it's just physically impossible to do it without getting the panel upgrade done. So just keep that in mind again as you're walking the property, looking, where you're going to place equipment, which is always a good selling tool, is to walk them around and start asking them, where do you want to put your battery? Where do you want to put your transformer? Where do you want to put your enclosure? So, where do you want to put your sub panel? Because if I'm a buyer and I start visualizing the equipment in certain places, then I'm going to be more committed to actually buying it. Because in my head, I've already visualized it as part of my life. So that's always a good selling tool. And then not only is that a good selling tool, but it's a good designing and realization tool. Because if you really mark those things out for us and turn them in, we'll use your diagram or your information to better satisfy the customer's needs and where he wants his system. And then it's also a good time to look at the MSP and make sure we're setting the proper expectations. So if you go over there and you see it's an Eaton panel, know that it has to have a panel upgrade if you want the full monitoring system. If it's a GE panel, sometimes not. And we could probably, on a site-by-site basis, call one of us, shoot us a picture. Usually we have to see the inside of the guts. So if you can open up the MSP and look inside of it, shoot some pictures, we could better assess if it'll work or not. All right, so back to pricing. So, the financing, we have Mosaic, Hero, and most purchase options. Not sure about Dividend. There is a big rebate right now. It's called the SGIP. It's the Self-Generation Incentive Program. This battery push is really based on the idea of us as integrators and contractors and solar salespeople and solar professionals helping to using solar and batteries to stabilize the grid. And by doing that, they're giving us a value. They're giving us a monetary credit for performing the service for the grid. And what we are finding out is the battery cost. It's a step down rebate, so whoever gets in sooner gets more, but we essentially can cover the entire battery cost, which is about $4,500 bucks. So the customer would get a $4,500 rebate sent to their home. It's not a tax credit, it's a rebate. And the rebate is based on the battery charging and discharging throughout the day. If you just store it, you never discharged it, you would not get a credit because they want us to contribute to, again, the stabilization of the grid. And if we're just storing it and we're not contributing, then we're not providing any value to them, so they don't give us any rebate. And again, Mosaic is showing 10 and 20 year as an option, but right now we just have the 10. Mosaic has said that we will be the first to be notified when they have the 20 year, which would be quite useful. This is straight from the SGIP website. We've already spent a lot of time registering with the SGIP moderator, and we've gotten our ducks in a row in our applications and everything, so we're fully ready to start getting these rebates signed up and executed for our customers. And this is actually a simpler way of looking at it. I'll send you those links again, and I think that's about it. That's all I got to say about this right now. So, there'll obviously be more development. So does anyone have any questions that I should be discussing? So yeah, I have someone asking me the cost per watt and then a rebate size. So we don't really have a cost per watt that I know of. I think we're just going to do a hard cost for everything all in, and that's going to be on the pricer sheet. And I think the $4,500 rebate is for the 10 kW inverter, the LG 10 kW. But for selfish reasons, I don't want to put the price on this webinar because the pricing will be changing, and then I'll have to edit it out. So I just want to leave it vague. But you know, once I was part of solar, just doing sales only, I just always broke it down into monthly payments, anyways. So again, on a 10-year, it's going to be a little over $100 a month with Mosaic, and you can obviously upcharge as much as you want, for your commissions and whatnot. But the prices will come down. The prices of the batteries, the prices of the equipment, everything are going to come down. But today is what it is. So we'll send you out that pricer today, and we'll always be working to reduce it, just like we do with our solar, to get the lowest price per watt out there. So yeah, I think the $100 a month is after the tax credit, the ITC and everything. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna let you go now, and thanks for you who joined me, and I'll get this thing cleaned up and then sent out so you can refer to it, and then feel free to call me or email me at any time. Again, we're all learning this together, and we're all going to grow and make this a normal part of our solar career as we go forward. One other thing too is I've not found a good solution for retrofitting, and right now it's just all new installs that we're going to do. If anyone has any successes out there, please let me know. But right now it doesn't seem to work. It's priced way out of the ballpark, and it's hard to get the financing for it. And I think it will be available, by year's end, I'm hoping. But as it is right now, there's not a good solution. So just new installs today, and then retrofitting, we'll have something for you in the future. So thank you guys again. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.